So here's our same formula we've been using, A times B equals C times D. And let's see what happens when I try to use it on this problem right here. So I've got A times B, that's 5 times 8. And on this side I'm going to have X times X minus 6. Okay, that problem looks very different. That's not just a regular algebra problem I can solve the way we've been working them. If I take this, I need to distribute this in order to solve it. This is 40. X times X, remember, is X squared, and X minus 6 is negative 6X. Now what? Well, you learned several different ways to solve these kind of problems back in Algebra 1. We're going to use completing the square today. And we're going to use it because we're going to do a couple of units and then we're going to go back to graphing some circle problems that look like this, where we're going to need to use completing the square anyway. So this will give us some practice on completing the square, and we'll use it in a couple of different applications here. Completing the square is actually super easy, possibly the easiest method there is, and it always works. So let me show you what it is. If you'll notice, this is actually the same problem I got here, x squared minus 6x equals 40. So the first thing you do is you add blanks. So what you need to do is rewrite it with blanks. This is probably one of the most important steps. Now step 2 is also super important. We're going to go down and we're going to divide by 2, and then when we go back up, we're going to square. So here's what I mean. We're going to write it like this. This is the form. Parentheses with a squared equals. I'm always going to have this x is going to go here. Then I take this number goes here, and I divide by 2 when I go down. So negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. And then I square when I go back up. I square when I go back up. 3 squared is 9. Now I can't just add something on one side of the equation, so you have to add it on both sides. So what I just put in this blank has to also go in that blank. This is why we put both blanks there, so that I had a place to write it here, and so I don't forget to put it on this side. If you do the step 1 with the blanks, you don't forget to add it on this side. Then I just add these. 40 plus 9 is 49. Now here's my equation. Well, this is just like if I had the problem x squared equals 9. How would we solve it? Well, we'd solve it by doing the square root of both sides. And we get x equals plus or minus 3. Now why is it plus or minus 3? Because I could put in positive 3 here. Remember my original problem was x squared equals 9. If I put in 3 and square it, 3 times 3 is 9. And if I put in negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. So we're always going to have a plus or minus when I take the square root of this side. So that's step 4, is I'm going to take the square root, and I want you to remember plus or minus. So square root, just like here, square root and squared cancel. So on this side, square root and squared cancel, and I just have x minus 3 left here. And on this side, square root of 49, that's plus or minus 7. Now, write as 2 equations. So this is actually plus 7, so I'll write it out as x minus 3 equals positive 7. And this is also negative 7, so I'll write it out as x minus 3 equals negative 7. So this here became a positive 7 and a negative 7. And then solve. So add 3, x equals 10, and add 3, x equals negative 4. Okay. Now if I was going to go back and put these answers for this problem up here, I could only use the positive one because this is an actual length of something. But for now, what we're going to do on the homeworks and on the rest of these problems is we're just we're just working some completing the squares so you learn how to do it. And then we'll go back and do some problems like this later. So right now we're just going to get 2 answers for each one of these. Alright, so let's practice this a few more times. Here's our steps we're going to do. Rewrite with the blanks. And anytime this number is still on this side, it has to go to that side. So n squared minus 8n plus blank. When I minus 7 to move it to that side, it becomes negative 7. Minus 7 on both sides, and then put the blank. Rewrite with the blanks. Every time the form's going to look like this. And I divide by 2 as I go down. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And then I square as I go up. 4 squared is 16. And I add it on both sides. If I put a 16 here, I have to put a 16 there. Negative 7 plus 16 is 9. Then I square root and plus or minus. And minus 4 equals plus or minus 3. Write as 2 equations. And minus 4 equals 3. And minus 4 equals negative 3. And solve. So we get n equals 7 and n equals 1. Okay, next one. And it's just the same steps over and over. So, this goes to the other side. Add the blanks. Write your form. Divide by 2 as you go down, square as you go up. Add it on both sides. Add those. Square root. X plus 8 equals, don't forget the plus or minus. Write as 2 equations. And solve. Okay, 2 more times to practice. What if I have a number on both sides? Well, I'm going to move this over here. So when I move it over, I have to minus 26 on both sides is what I'm really doing. So I'm going to combine these. So I minus the 26. So this cancels. And on this side, 8 minus 26 is 16. Write your form. Divide as you go down. Square as you go up. Add these together. Square root both sides. Plus or minus. Rewrite as 2 equations. Yeah, one more time. Move it to this side. Add the blanks. 5 plus 86 is 91. Write your form. Divide as you go down. Square as you go up. Take the square root. Write as 2 equations. Solve.